Hello and welcome back. I kind of bumped my microphone, but as you can see, I'm currently in a stormtrooper helmet, and this is actually one of the assignments, or the assignment that I'm going to be showing you today. And ah, this assignment is paper mache. So yes, this right here, this is a stormtrooper helmet made out of nothing but a cardboard, as you can see right in here. Cardboard. Then we have paper, newspaper right here, yeah, right there, everywhere. We got newspaper and paint. And that's about it. There's a few little odds and ends in here, like a little bit of packaging material and a soap bottle. But aside from that, 100% paper mache, and that is one of your optional lessons that you can have. So yes, if you have not watched the last video, please go back and do so. This week and next week is actually independent projects, and if you would like to follow along with me to create one of these, or if you'd like to create just something in general with paper mache and cardboard and hot glue, follow along with me because I will be stepping you through the entire process on how I made this. And it took about 4 days. The total amount of supplies that I had, I used one cardboard box. Yes, like this is literally one cardboard box. I used roughly, I think, 15 hot glue sticks, and I used 2 full packs of newspaper. So 2 newspapers. It was a total of, I think, 16 pages total. And then paint. That's about it. That's all we did for this. So if you'd like to follow along with this, you can. If you would like to do something that is paper mache and sculpture, the same methods apply. You don't really need a whole lot of supplies. You don't really need much of anything. And you can follow along. You can create a stormtrooper helmet. If you want to create a Mandalorian helmet, that's fine. If you just want to make a sculpture in general and you want to paper mache it, like make a piñata, that's fine too. All the methods are the same. So if you'd like to follow along with us these next 2 weeks, please watch the video. I would love to see what you make. But yes, this lesson is paper mache. I'm going to cut right to the video and start explaining the process. Okay guys, so I am adding this in post commentary. As you can see, I am currently editing the video right now. But let me give you a few tips on how to safely use a hot glue gun, because I don't think I actually covered that now that I'm going over this. Typically, this is something I would cover in the classroom, but we're not in the classroom right now. Okay, so safety with a hot glue gun. First, if you do not have a hot glue gun but you would like to complete this project, you don't necessarily need a hot glue gun. It just makes it a lot easier if you have one. Now, you can still complete this with painter's tape and regular stuff like that. If you do have a hot glue gun, I would actually suggest you pick up a low temperature hot glue gun, because low temperature hot glue guns will not burn you as easily as the high temperature ones. Now, there are disadvantages to the low temperature ones, such as if you unplug it, run it somewhere that you need to glue, put the glue down and put it together, the glue is such a low temperature that it actually will probably dry out before you get the time to put the 2 pieces together. High temperature ones, on the other hand, don't have that problem, but high temperature ones also burn you very, very easily. So yes, with hot glue guns, do not ever put your finger on the tip of the hot glue gun. Now, obviously, this one's not plugged in. Do not do that. I've had kids I've seen go, "Hey, Mr. Gray, look, psst, ah!" Oh, don't do it, okay? Just don't do it. You will burn yourself if you do that, so please don't. Also, please be careful of hot gluing things together, because I've done this myself, but I've seen people who take 2 pieces of cardboard, glue it together, push their fingers on it, and they miss the cardboard and just stick their finger directly in the hot glue. It's not fun. Don't do that. Be careful about that. Always be cautious about what you are doing. These things are dangerous. Now, the next bit of information that I want to give you with hot glue guns. If you do find yourself in a situation where you are hot gluing something and hot glue gets on your finger, You do not want to immediately take it and try to rub it off. I know it burns. I know that it's not comfortable, and that's your immediate gut reaction to try to get that hot thing off of your finger as quick as you possibly can. But don't do it, because if you have a spot of hot glue on your hand and it's still hot and you go and you smear it and try to get it off, it is going to be on your finger. It's going to be up your finger where you smeared it, and it's also going to be on your other finger. So instead of having one burn, you got 3 or 4. The best thing you can do is, if you get a hot glue something on you, is to let it dry before you pick it off, or at least let it sit there for a couple seconds before you get it off, because your skin will actually absorb a lot of the heat. You'll be left with a blister, but it'll be better than having your entire hand as a blister. Okay, so this is yet another cut, something that I forgot to mention to you that is very important. Now, throughout this entire build, I guess what you call it, a build, I ended up using a pair of scissors. Now, there were occasionally a few points where I had to use an X-Acto knife or a box cutter. I would recommend you all to use scissors. Now, as for safety, please make sure that your parents know what you are doing, what you're cutting up, and that you have permission to do so. Next, do not ever run with scissors. Don't ever goof off and like, ha ha ha, sitting there like this. No, don't do that. First off, I worked with somebody who actually was demonstrating for a class, and they said, don't do this, and stuck out their tongue and went, and actually snipped their tongue in the middle of class. So yeah, don't do that. Okay, scissors, very dangerous. Be safe with them. Next, if you are going to be using a box cutter or an X-Acto knife, make sure your parents are around. Make sure that they have approved it and that you are safe to do so. I do not recommend using these unless you have somebody there monitoring you, okay? Because things can go very bad very quick when you're using a sharp object. So yes, if you can, just use scissors. That's all that you need. That's basically all I used. If you are going to be using a sharp blade like this or a box cutter, make sure you have something down underneath of what you're cutting so you don't mess up the carpet or the tile or the concrete. Whenever you are cutting, you want to cut away from your hand. So if your hand is here like this, it is a good idea to cut away from your hand, not down into your hand, because that is how nasty little scars happen, and other scars happen, and other scars, and yeah, learn from my mistakes and don't do that. It might be quicker to cut towards you, but don't ever cut towards you. Always cut away from you. Okay, those are Mr. Gray's tips on using sharp objects. Again, make sure your parents know what you're doing. Do not do anything without their consent. All right. Thank you all. I'll let you get back to the video. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is you want to think about a design. You want to think about what you would like to do and make, and try to work together as a team if you are working in a group, and try to come up with some ideas. The first thing you want to do is sketch out your plans. So as you can see right here, I want to make a stormtrooper helmet. And I've already sketched it out, and I have some ideas about what I want it to look like, and then I found out while I was sketching some very pleasant surprises, such as in the mask right here, I found out that it actually sticks out kind of far. So it actually comes right here and goes down here. So I have plenty of room right there for my mask and other things to, be. So I don't have to really worry about breathing too much in this. I was able to find a 3D model right here of the Stormtrooper helmet, and I found out that this right here actually kind of looks like a top to the helmet. So really, all I have to do for the top part of it, which is one of the most difficult parts for making a helmet, making it fit the top of your head, is to find out how wide my head needs to be, or how around it is, the diameter of it, and then cut a piece of cardboard to it. I can then slit up the sides, fold it over, and I can create the dome. Now, there's multiple ways that you can go about measuring your head. the first method is you can take some string and wrap it around your head, see where it meets, and then there is how wide your head is. You can also take some paper, tape it up end by end, wrap it around your head, same thing. What I ended up doing was using some painter's tape because I had lots of this stuff laying around, and all I did was just wrap this around my head. It came back, it met right there, I tore it off, and that is how long or how big of a diameter my head is. So I'm going to be using this piece of tape, and I'm going to be making that top part of that helmet. Okay, so at this point I'm going to be talking over this video, and this audio is post-recording. So at this point, yeah, we're zooming through, and I'm going to be telling you what's going on. So yeah, I already made the base of my helmet, and I showed you how I did that, measured the diameter of my head, cut out a piece of board around it, kind of bent it around and glued the top part down. Now the little square piece that you see right here, this is actually to square up my glasses to make sure that the helmet will fit over my glasses, and the round part is the base for my head to sit on it. Now I am going to need to curve this around so it makes a nice dome. And this is not the first time that I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to have to do this twice actually. The first time I'm doing it is just for the aesthetic curve of the helmet. So at this point what I did is I took some pretty thick paper, like cardstock paper, cut it into strips, curved it around, and just glued them down. And then I made little square pieces and glued them in as I needed to fill in holes. And that is the base of the helmet that fits over my glasses. Now that I have the helmet part done, and I know how wide I need it to be, I know how deep that I need it to go, I am going to look back at my reference material, and I'm going to start building out the helmet. And I'm using just, I'm measuring a few things here and there, but mainly I'm just drawing it out as I see it, and then cutting out stencils, tracing them onto the cardboard, and I'm basically eyeballing the entire project. So yeah, at this point, making the glasses, and please remember to always reuse stuff. If you need a piece and it's just a small piece, reuse it. You don't need to cut up a brand new box whenever you just need something that you could reuse from something else. So yeah, at this point I'm making the glasses piece for the helmet, sizing it up, making sure it fits well, and then I'm going to be adjusting it as I need to. Alright, let's go ahead and get started with the rest of it. Now here I'm measuring out how far I want the helmet to go back, measuring out on a piece of cardboard, and I'm making little lines. These are going to be little spacers so I can build up the rest of the helmet. Now once I get the spacers cut out, then I am building another strip to go across the top. I'm going to be making 2 of these, and this is going to be the final dimension of the helmet. So as you can see right there, final dimension of the helmet, and it's going to be a little bit bigger than what I currently have. So again, I put in a few more spacers, and then I'm going to go over it and add some more of the paper strips that I had before, just to make it curve into a dome. Now at this point, what I am doing, I am cutting out the bottom section of the mask right under the glasses. I'm just bending it over, rolling it up, making sure that it's nice and rounded, and I'm attaching it basically where I think it needs to be. It needs to be on an incline, so I'm just slightly inclining it like that. Once I get that on there, I know it's going to be a lot bigger than I need it to be. I'm going to draw some marks on there. You know, tracing lines basically where I know where to cut, and then I'm going to cut those out. I'm going to bring it down, and those are going to be the grill for the teeth. Now I'm just working mainly on the details of the helmet, so I am bringing up my 3D model reference that I can spin around, I can look at, and this is not going to be exact, and I'm not trying to make it look exact. I'm just trying to get a a rough estimation as to what I think that it needs to look like. And basically from here, what we're doing, we're using the same application of spacers and just leftover cardboard pieces, gluing them together and making it look like what we want it to look like. There's not really a whole lot of science or techniques in between it. It's just adding some spacers in and using some pieces like we've already done. So yeah, at this point, look at your reference, look at your sketches, and think about what you want to do with it, and just commit to it and see if you can make it match up as best as you can. Remember, be resourceful. Look at the different things that you have and try your best to make it look like what you're trying to make it look like. Now at this point, I did actually add something in that I didn't mention before, and that was a paper towel roll. And I use that for the curve on the, I don't know, breathing apparatus, the hose for the oxygen possibly that goes into the helmet. And I use that because it's a whole lot easier to use something that's already rounded as opposed to trying to come up with something and making it round. So yeah, I use that, use a little bit of paper to patch it up a bit and try to level it out as best as I can. Now for the earpiece, what I did here, I just cut out a circle and then I cut a strip of cardboard that is, just the length of the circle, and I glue those together to make my own little cup basically for the earmuffs. Now starts for the paper mache. Now for paper mache, it's actually pretty easy. You don't need a whole lot of supplies. The supplies that you need are very simple. You can pick them up around the house or you can pick them up very cheap. First off, you are going to need paper, newspaper, and you're going to need newspaper to lay down underneath of whatever you're doing so you don't make a big mess. And then finally, you're going to need newspaper for the paper mache because obviously you're going to need something to paper mache. Now you can use newspaper for this, you can use tissue paper, you can use colored paper, you can even use printer paper. You can go even as far as to use the packaging paper that you get in some of your packages whenever you order them. It doesn't really matter what you use for this. Now, as far as making the paper mache paste is very easy to make, and you really only need a couple of ingredients. First off, the first ingredient, and this is the first method that I'm going to show you. It's the cleanest method. It's the easiest method to use. And that is using Elmer's glue with a little bit of water. So yeah, you put Elmer's glue in it. I put just about half Elmer's glue, half water, and mix it up until it's kind of soapy. Until it's kind of soupy. And that is the paper mache mixture. Now the other option that you have is to use flour and salt and water. So you want to use equal amounts of flour and water and then add some salt to it. Both of these are options to use the paper mache. Now if you do the flour and water method, you will want to use salt because otherwise you run the possibility of it molding, and that's not good. So once you have your paper mache mixture made up, the first step that you want to do, you want to lay out the newspaper on the table so you don't make a mess. So yeah, take a newspaper, lay it out so you don't make a mess. Next, I like to start tearing off pieces and laying them off to the side in different sizes. Now, you want to start off kind of small pieces like this, like I showed in the video. If you ever have a question and you're like, hey, is this piece too big? Then what I want you to do is just go ahead, tear it in half. And tear it in half until you think, okay, this piece isn't too big. Now, there are long strips that are useful in some applications, but for the most part, you want to have nice half-dollar size chunks, basically. Okay, now As I said, the paper mache paste, you want to make it look kind of soupy. And once you get started with it, it's very simple. All you need to do is wring it out, basically. Take it in between your fingers, string out all the excess paste, and then start by putting it on your sculpture. You want to have a total of 3 layers. And 3 layers is a nice number because if you just have 1 layer, you're going to run into the problem of the paper just lifting up off of what you're doing. If you do 3 layers and it sticks to it really nice and it gives you a nice solid place to paint. Now, if you are not putting this on cardboard, if you're putting this, say, on a balloon and you're making a snowman or a piñata, you are going to want to use 7 layers. And the reason why is because you're using paper. The rigidity of your sculpture is going to be made out of paper. So if you already have something that's very rigid that is going to be stable, like cardboard, as your base, you just use 3 layers. If you are going to be using paper as your base, you want to use 7 layers. And you want to map out what you want to paint. You can paint over cardboard. It just doesn't look as nice and smooth. And there are some areas on my mask that I want to leave just cardboard because I want the look of that. You want to map that out, find out what you want to be nice, smooth painted, and what you want to have the cardboard ridges being shown on. So paper mache over everything that you want to be nice and smooth. If you want it to look corrugated or rigid, then you want to leave that area on paper mache. And now for the final step, and this is probably my favorite step of the whole thing, is painting the mask or painting your project. This is my favorite part because it really lets you go ahead and express yourself and it makes it look like a finished product. So what I always like to tell my students to do is start with a primer coat. And this time, since my Stormtrooper is going to be mainly white, I started with an off-gray kind of white primer. And what this is used for, you want to start with a primer that is not white, because if you start with a white coat and put it on there, all the letters are going to show through, and it doesn't take much to turn white into an off-gray. So I tell my students to start with a gray primer if they're going to do white. If they're not doing white, just go ahead, start with a black primer or a dark color or something like that. And make sure you just paint the entire thing in that color that is your primer color. Now when that paint dries, then you can go back over it with your final color and the words from the newspaper are not going to show. That it looks more like a finished product at that point. So yes, go ahead and start mixing up your paint. Remember, a little bit of paint goes a long way. And then just start painting in your areas. Now when you get finished, you will have you'll have to let it dry significantly. I actually let my mask dry for about a solid day. I also went through and did a little technique known as dry brushing. And dry brushing is where you take some color, you mix it up with your paintbrush, and you just wipe down almost all the excess on the paintbrush off on a piece of paper, and you just leave what is barely hanging onto the bristles on the paintbrush. And then you lightly go over some of the areas, and it kind of makes it look a little dirty and grungy. And that's what I wanted this Stormtrooper helmet to look like. So I went in and I did a little bit of dry brushing on a few little key areas just to make it look more rugged and rough. And that is about it. All right, and that is our lesson on paper mache and how to create your very own Stormtrooper helmet. So I hope that you all have had a fun time. I hope that you've had a great year with me so far, and I hope that this has maybe opened your eyes to maybe costumes that you could make during Halloween. You know, simple stuff that maybe, oh yeah, I really wanted to go as this, but I don't really know how to do that or what costumes are available. Well, now you know exactly how you can make your own, and you can do it pretty quick too. So thank you all very much. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for following along with us, and I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial video. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.